Hello and welcome to the Nova Coach podcast. This is episode 319, Stuck in Old Habits. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. I had a client recently who was stuck in a self-sabotage sinkhole. She has this habit of turning to food for comfort, overeating, whether that be portion sizes, like just eating more than's required, but also eating late at night or eating when frustrated or eating when tired or eating after you've argued with somebody or eating, dare I go on. I'm sure many of you can relate. I know I sure can. And when I was coaching her and asking her some questions, what really became apparent is from her point of view, she thought they would reach a time where the old habit of overeating or turning to food would switch off, much like we would switch off a light switch. And for myself and many, like all the people I've coached, I haven't found that to be the case. So for you, if you're listening to this and overeating isn't your go-to or your jam, what is an old habit that you do that you have tried to overcome? Is it staying up too late? Is it overspending, over drinking, over shopping, over scheduling yourself, like overworking, over exercising? Like, what is the habit that you're wanting to break? Just give you a moment to think about that before we go on. What's your old habit? And are you similar to my client, is in that you imagine, or somewhere in the back of your brain, it's like, I need to flick this off like a switch. I just got to find the right program, the right process, the right healing, the right rewiring of my nervous system to overcome this. Because I want to present an alternate viewpoint to you. That old habit, no matter how much you consciously despise it, can't stand it, know that it's not good for you, and so on and so forth, in some way, in the moment that you're doing it, is serving you. You could unpack why that is. In my point of view, that isn't the field of coaching. That's more something you would do in therapy. But in coaching, from the way that I look at coaching, taking you from where you are to where you want to go, how we look at this is it serves us in some way. We don't necessarily need to know what it is. As I said, if you want to understand that, that's not my wheelhouse. But it's no longer serving. Like, I no longer want to participate in this behavior. And I know that this other behavior is more healthy or more nourishing or going to get me close to my goals or so on and so forth. But what we tend to do, like, see if this analogy lands, if you're currently turning to food, or as I said, swap in whatever your example is here, and you have the flicking of the switch thought in your mind, it's all or nothing, on or off. It's kind of like you're standing at the top of a cliff. This is the habits that you're partaking in. And the habits where you don't turn to the food is at the opposite cliff. So you somehow need to make a ginormous leap or jump from turning to food to not turning to food. And because I've used a cliff example and there's no bridge here, there's a ginormous leap. If you fail, because it's a big distance to gap, then you're going to fall spectacularly to your doom, because this is a cliff. What I'd like you to envisage, it's a hard word for me to say, is instead of it being on or off like a light switch and you're at the cliff of potential doom, what if instead it was like a trapeze? So right now over here is the overeating, you're hanging out over here, and now you're going to swing over to this side, which is no longer overeating. And as you swing, if you so miss, instead of falling to your doom, like with the cliff face, instead you're caught by a nice safety net. You might be a little bruised, you might be a little winded, but you can get out of the net, climb back up, and do it again. So whenever you fail, and if you're not watching me on video, if you're listening, I've got my fingers in inverted commas. Whenever you fail and you turn back to those behaviors and you overeat, you've taken a tumble, you've landed in the net, you're dusting yourself up, you're climbing back again, and you're swinging. Because the thing is, if you overeat constantly, like if you slam a block of chocolate or two a night, no judgment, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And it's a pass fail, because if I don't slam the chocolate, then I'm winning. But if I have some chocolate, I'm losing. But some nights you'll have the chocolate and some nights you won't. So it's a matter of building up the evidence that you can have nights without chocolate, or you can have less chocolate. Like if you're slamming 2 blocks of chocolate a day and you reduce that to 1.5 and then to 1 and then to half, like you back it off slowly, then you don't miss it as much and you don't fall into these extremes of cliff. You're actually building up your muscles, you're swinging your trapeze. And then when a moment happens that you're extra stressed or something upsets you and you fall back into old habits, you haven't failed, you've just taken a tumble. You can brush yourself, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, climb back up again. Because what tends to happen, if you said in another way, you build the muscle, you build the strength. As you're swinging your trapeze, you make the catch the first time, then it's easier the second time, then it's easier the third time. It doesn't mean that you won't ever fumble again. Like you can see circus performers or aerial artists, trapeze artists. Like my daughter does cheer, and we went to the cheer competition. There was like 26 groups that did their routine. In one group, a girl, a flyer, in the middle of the air fell, and there was an ambulance and a whole situation. But I'm sure that team has done that routine countless times without requiring an ambulance or anybody injured, and then they will do it again. I don't know, I can't speak for this girl, but I imagine people fall and sometimes they are injured and need time off to recover, but they go back to the sport and they continue to cheer. So if you stuff up, for lack of a better way of putting it, and slam a block of chocolate or 2 again, it doesn't mean anything about you haven't fallen to your doom. Yeah, it's suboptimal, it's not great, but you know what to do. You've built the muscle, you've done it enough times that you can go straight back to the new behavior that you're instilling, rather than, oh, put the switch back on, I'm stuffed now. And it's practice, it's repetition, it's learning a new way of being. It takes time. And when you let go, in my mind, of the switch analogy, on or off, all or nothing, in or out, on the wagon, off the wagon, and realize, yeah, there are times where I partake in behavior that isn't beneficial or isn't taking me closer to my goals, but more often than not, like if you did literally chart or track this, if you currently eat 2 blocks of chocolate a night, 7 days a week, and then you 6 days a week, and then 5 days a week, and over a period of a month or 2 or a year, if you were doing it once or twice as opposed to 360 times, how much would that alter your health, your well-being, your emotional health, all these sorts of things? So all of this to say, if you're stuck in old habits and you're seeing it as a switch that needs to be flicked, or it's never going to happen again, and as soon as you have it happen once, that's the end, that's setting ourselves up for failure. Whereas if you're like, oh, missed the catch on the trapeze, fallen into the net, I'm a little bit bruised, but I'm going to get back up again, then that's how the new habits get to be built and get stronger. And obviously this does take time. It's not instant. Change is very rarely convenient. It's messy. It's time taking. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. And you can do this. And yeah, just giving yourself the grace that you so easily give to others, to keep trying, to keep picking yourself up, to keep going. And yeah, the new habits will form over time. It doesn't mean you'll never go back, but it just means you have the tools and you can be a lot kinder and gentler and loving to yourself and go, oh, that was a blip. Like if you're driving your car down the highway and you have a flat tire, I highly doubt that you get out and go slash the other 3. If you're anything like me, you call roadside assist. But if you're pretty savvy, you might get out the jack and prop the car up yourself. But if you have a flat tire, you change the tire. If you get stuck or fall back into old habits, it's just like changing a tire. You get back up, you keep going. You don't go slash the other 3. It doesn't have to become this big negative self-sabotage sinkhole. It can just be a moment. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is of interest to you, this is the kind of work that I do with people, go over to my website, suzannekohlberg.com, check it out. And if you want to book a chat about, potentially working together, all the details you can find on my website. Hope to catch you on the next one. Bye for now.